Welcome to yet another episode of the Marketing B-Sides. I'm your host, Tom Hootman. I love this episode. I was nervous going into this episode because it's like throwing batting practice to an all-star. Like, I'd be scared. How do I throw a strike? This person does this every single day. This person is just, you meet someone who's just comfortable in the other chair and just gets it. To say they're a powerhouse is an understatement to them. Rachel Elsts Downey is the founder and CEO of a company called Share Your Genius, a B2B media superpower that produces between 1,500 to 2,000 podcast episodes per month. That's a shit ton of episodes. And what I loved about this conversation is that number one, we get along swimmingly. I've had the pleasure of meeting Rachel a few times. We just immediately started bantering, giving each other a little shit. She's always replied anytime I've had a question, anytime I've needed advice, anytime I've just wanted to catch up. And she was almost immediately back at me about, hell yeah, I'll be on this podcast. She's very much about cutting through the toxic positivity and facts over feelings, brass tack shit, which I thought was fantastic. We talk a lot about what a lot of podcasts get right and what a lot of podcasts fuck up every day, and how to prep your guests and how to show up for the conversation in a way that makes it worth listening to. I'm going to tell you the moral of the story now because I trust you as adults. You don't have to prove shit to anybody. That right there is worth the price of admission, folks. She's just a remarkable guest and a better person, honestly. And I love this conversation. If she called me and said, I want to do an episode every other week for the next year, I'd say, sign me up. She's that fantastic of a guest. I love her frank opinions and her input, and just the openness she brought with her experience and knowledge about marketing, about her journey, about her company, about what she thinks works, what she thinks is not working out there. You know the drill. Go do all the stuff to help make us look good. But more than anything else, listen, because sometimes it's about the friends you make along the way. Rachel Elsts Downey, everyone. Enjoy. How's life been?
It's been good. It's been busy.
This is really intimidating for me today, by the way.
Why?
Because that's what you do for a living, is podcasts.
Yeah, but podcasting is just conversation, and you're a great conversationalist. So I feel like you have no issues here.
It's what I do every day. I was always like, I don't know if I can run an agency. The job isn't really, it is running an agency. That's the part that's is the stress.
Yeah.
But so much of the job, and you know this as well, is like literally just getting out and talking to people. Mm-hmm. Brian Neal, Blind Zebra, conversations with no expectations all day. And those things, those waves tend to come back at you in different ways. It's karma. I was raised Catholic, but I believe in karma, straight up.
I am Catholic. It's all energy. You can't defute the fact that we run on energy. And so it's like what you put out comes back. What you withhold combusts. It's not that complicated, even though it is.
The energy thing gets in my head, though, because there are times where I'm like toxic positivity. So I've gotten feedback that I'm much more positive now. I used to be the office curmudgeon.
Okay, I could see that all day.
Just like it was a defense mechanism out of fear of embarrassment is 100% what it was. Like, I'm too cool for school. And so like the positivity and like the positive vibes thing is very intentional. And there are moments when I have to tell myself it's okay to be in a shitty mood. It's like, I don't want to become one of those toxic, like, oh, everything's super while I'm crumbling inside.
I think the balance, though, is like not attaching to that feeling, good or bad. Like watching problems appear without fully labeling them and owning them as like part of who you now are. This is like way deeper and like
we got
what we were going to talk about. But that's something that I think it's like just like a lifelong journey for all of us. But I think that's kind of how you're supposed to be. You're allowed to feel the way you feel, but it's what you do with that feeling and how you make it turn into who you are, and all of that becomes the challenge that you have to remove yourself from. This isn't mine, but there's a guy that I respect. His name's Nick Smurelli. We can tag him. But he taught me this thing that he's done with his kids that I now do with mine, which is like anytime you hear them say, I can't, you just reframe it to I can't yet. And the layer I would add to it is like, I don't want to, because it's like some of the stuff is like, it's not that I can't or can't yet. It's that I just don't want to. And that's okay too.
Man, do you charge by the hour? Because this is really good for me. It's true, though. I've reported to founders before, and there is this great founder's lament that I've always been like, oh, cry me a river. What a rough life. You get to call all the shots, right? And there is an element of being on an island and alone where it's so easy to spin off. And it's okay to not have it figured out. And at the same time, you do catch yourself like the things I'm frustrated about are quite literally a lot of the times there's things I don't want to do. So when I think about growth, right, like in a growing agency, I'm like, I can't wait to have full time HR and marketing and a full time
Mhm.
client success, like layers, good bureaucracy.
Yeah.
And it's the silver platter syndrome of like, you just get used to in a corporate environment being like, that sounds like an HR problem to me.
Yeah.
Looks good from my house. And in
It's
reality, it's like stuff I don't want to do.
Well, and I think there's a lot of truth to that. I worked at an agency prior to kind of going on to my own. And that agency that I grew up in was very like startup vibes. But now sitting in the seat I'm in and we're bringing in new talent, I have felt the difference as sitting in the founder's seat of having talent that does come from corporate and their experience of being onboarded or some of the things that are messy that I'm used to being messy that they're not. And so there's almost like the opposite side of like the chaos. And it's interesting, but at the end of the day, it's like it's removing the self-interest, removing the ego and just coming to these conversations with like, what do you need? What do I need? What are we trying to do? And continually anchor back on that. Otherwise, like the spiral goes forever. And that could be on the
Yeah.
founder side or on their side. That's like a real thing for sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's easy to spin off into being mortified. It's like inviting someone into your house and it's messy,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
We've been fortunate enough in my prior life to have a wonderful maid service that would come in. We'd hire them like once every couple of months, and they would
Yeah.
come in. And they always told me when people first hire them, they clean their house before they get there. So
Yeah.
like it takes 2 or 3 visits before they start leaving clothes everywhere, and they don't wipe off the mirror in the bathroom because this is like a senior led team, and so many of the team members are people I worked with years ago at Hannafin. I remember being mortified, like, okay,
Mhm.
no, there's no process for that. No, I'm just hiring off vibes. We don't have that. No, that'd be great to have. Do you have a copy of that? You wanna write it? Like and, like, you're
Do
like,
you have
"Oh my
time to
god,
do it?
all I'm doing is telling them how chaotic and messy everything is," and then
Yes.
you get used to, this is just a startup. This is very much at that point in our life cycle, it was me and, like, 2 other people, and there's just no time to build the thing that we had, but then every person that comes in is able to recreate or build a couple of those things, and then over time, you feel like you're still in the messy middle.
Mhm.
And I had a team member, we talked about it. He's like, actually, like, we have a lot of processes. This is really good.
Yes. Yeah.
We've come so far.
It's facts over feelings. And I think that is like a thing that I've constantly had to go back to. And then it's like, where do I have feelings that I don't have facts for? You know what I mean? To help me like actually understand like what's going on. The other thing that I started to do that somebody gave me advice on was like, I have a list of things that I wish were better, but I'm not touching it right now because there is only so much you can do. And so it's like, this is a problem, but it's not a problem I need to solve right now. And I feel like sitting in my seat, oftentimes my job is to open up the junk drawer and figure out like what we're going to organize, what we're going to fix, that kind of stuff.
It's a good
But then you
analogy.
but then you just close the drawer again because you're like, all right, I organized these things, closing the drawer. Let me now reopen the drawer next quarter and like figure out. So
Yeah.
the founder's seat is not an easy one, but I think it's from my perspective, and it's obviously biased. Like I think it's the most rewarding.
I would concur. It's not the easiest, but it's also not as hard as a lot of people's. Like, they're not working 140 hours a week. Shut the fuck up. Like, there's like,
It also depends on how you earned your founder seat. Like, did you go VC and you've got pressure, or did you fund it yourself and you have stress of like making payroll and all of that, but like no one else is breathing down your neck? So I do think there's like varying degrees of that. But to your point, I also feel like a lot of people complain and whine about choices that they make. And it's like,
yeah.
so make different choices.
Well, I'm glad someone is out there thinking about the VC and PE backed CEOs. If anyone is, you are. Thank goodness, because they're so disregarded. Seriously though, like I chose the other path. Like I'm
Yeah.
very bootstrapped, and it's very much how do taxes work, right? Am
Yeah.
I like
Different
what's
stress.
totally different stress. And I will go back to like, you have to be comfortable asking dumb questions and saying, I don't know. So like my accountant, she's amazing. A personal accountant now, she's a business accountant. I remember told me a great story, kind of like a blanket statement about like, a lot of business owners out there, literally at the end of the month, look at how much money is left over and take out as much of that as they can. And that's what they pay themselves. And it's like
Mm-hmm.
a few $100s, and some months it's a few $1,000s. She's like, you're good, Hootman. Like you have structure. And I was like, really? I didn't think it like,
You're like, I did something
oh
right.
wow. Well, we've actually got this kind of figured out in our own way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, facts over feelings.
Facts over feelings. So what's one thing that's completely different that you thought life was gonna be like that maybe threw you for a curveball when you did jump out on your
I think that one of the things that I realize now is that I was putting self-imposing limits on myself all along the way because I was scared of outcomes that didn't even exist yet. So little things like I'm just going to stay really small, or I'm just going to be a freelancer, or I'm just going to do these things because I didn't want to have to build a team. Well, it's not that I didn't want to build a team, it's that I didn't want to have to be in a position to let people go. So like I was trying to like avoid conflict. We're in like a really interesting season right now where I'm starting to make some different strategic decisions, and like I would not have been in a mindset a couple years ago to be able to make some of the decisions I'm making now because it made me too nervous. And so like I've had a hard time committing to things because I didn't want to have to deal with the missing out or the repercussions of making a decision that actually didn't pan out. And so part of my founder's journey of just like trusting yourself, getting the facts, and then making these like bets and just committing to the thing that you are making the bet on. Like that has been a challenge.
commit to the bit. Yeah.
Yeah, commit to the bit. I love that.
Did you ever feel like you're forced into making those anxious, nervous decisions for good reasons, like growth?
I think they were all personal reasons, and those personal reasons were coloring the way I marketed it to myself.
Did you ever have any fear of putting yourself out there and making those commitments out of they're all going to laugh at me? I'm speaking from my heart here. I was always scared to death to go live with the website. I had built these checkpoints in my head. Once the site is finished, I can go. And then once I have a client conversation, and it was finally like, you just need to jump and do it, because I was like, what if I fail? This is a better story. It's a fun story. Like whether I fall flat on my face, I crash and burn, I bump into a million walls. I love the story I'll be able to tell. Worth every cent, maybe. I'm kidding.
That's good. I like that anchor. I think for me, it was less about fear of people making fun of me. It's interesting that you say that because you're so like naturally self-deprecating. And so maybe that is just like a defense mechanism.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, I never worried too much about people making fun of me, but I did worry about not being smart. And so like I didn't want people to think I was dumb. That was always my issue. Like honestly, I went to law school for a couple years, and the reason I went to law school is to prove that I was smart. And now I'm like, how smart am I? I'm sitting on a pile of student loan debt, not even a lawyer. You know what I mean? So it's like, I feel like we like do these things that you look back and you're like, what was really driving those decisions was like your ego. It was like, it was not actually like what I was supposed to be doing or who I actually am.
Yeah.
And I think when you're a founder, you get a weird look at your psyche because you're like forced to in like a really weird way.
The law school thing. So you're kind of like, well, I really showed them, didn't I? Right. And you're like,
yeah, I'm like, showed who? Showed myself. You know what I mean? That I'm an idiot for doing this.
Yeah. I mean, in performance media, 99% of people's careers are built on subject matter expertise. And they come up through a channel. Like I was a paid social manager or a paid search manager or an SEO specialist. And I came straight in from the side as a director of sales at Hannafin. And our founder at the time, she's like, you don't have to be a mechanic to sell cars. Because I was like, am I going to get training? And then I didn't realize in hindsight, it's like you don't just get trained, right? Like the second you stop like managing accounts, your skill set starts to atrophy. So
it does.
Always this imposter syndrome. People are going to realize I don't know what I'm talking about. And that's the self-deprecation comes from running at that. I'm kind of the guard at the gates. And then the next step, we let the smart people in the room, right? And it's like the subject matter expertise won't live in this conversation. This is a high-level conversation about business outcomes and where you're at and what you've experienced. And you run at that self-deprecating, like, you're talking to the idiot here. It's a defense mechanism, but it's also like part of that fear of like, people are going to think I'm an idiot. Like they're going to know I'm not smart. I don't know anything about paid search. It's not my job to know everything about paid search.
Yeah. And I think being a great leader is being incredibly self-aware. And so knowing like where you run out and where you need people is one of those key things that I feel like you have to learn. And so for you, if it's like, this is where my journey ends and somebody else begins, that's not you being an idiot. It's actually you being smart because you're bringing in other people who can carry it across the finish line. And that was something like I've had to journey on myself of like, no, I'm done with this. I need to actually let go of it because I'm not serving the business anymore. I'm serving my ego.
Do you ever question founders who just run headlong into it and don't have that self-awareness? Like, is that what it really takes to be wildly successful? Like, what do they possess that others don't? And like, it's the ego, the sociopath side, like, of that founder who just like runs through brick walls. And there are times I see people who, and of course this is LinkedIn or this is like talking to people. This isn't the truth. This is like their what they put out. But you're kind of like, are you really just like that fearless and just like, do you have any self-awareness whatsoever? Sometimes I'm like, do I have too much? Which I guess is self-awareness in its own right.
And honestly, like, this is so esoteric, so it's, like, trying to keep this grounded in this, it's like, what other people are doing is not my business, and that has been something that I've had to, like, teach myself and remind myself because you do look at headlines or you do look at what people are saying and you play the comparison game, and you're like, "I guess I'm not going hard enough. I guess I'm not smart enough. I guess I missed this opportunity." And the reality is, like, I may not grow a billion-dollar company, but, like, maybe that's because that's not my value. Like that those aren't the values that I'm associating with like success in business. And so I think that's part of it is like you have to define success for yourself as a founder and you can't make your success defined by somebody else's definition. Otherwise, you're always going to feel like you're behind or you're going to feel down about what you're doing.
Comparison is the thief of joy, as they say.
Yeah. And it's so true, and especially in business. And even today, like I have to remind myself of those things. And I just have to anchor back on like my values because my values are personal and they do shade how I show up as a leader and where I start to take the company. So all of these things are like so intertwined, especially when you're a founder, because you don't just have a job to do. Like it's like you're raising a child. Like it's like it is truly like you are building something that you are attached to, but part of being a founder is detaching from the thing that you built, which is really hard to do.
You worked at an agency and then you jumped out on your own. How did you end up in this vertical?
So what I would call SME, like my subject matter expertise at the time was copy. Like I knew how to write really good copy. And then because of that, I got into like lead gen work and I was leading clients at an agency. Anyways, was at law school, had a baby, and she was born like very, very early. So it was like she was born at like 26 weeks and most babies cook for at least 40. So she was very, very early.
Thank you for educating me.
So she was born very early. So I was living at the NICU. And I had a friend reach out to me and asked me to help him promote his podcast and stuff like that because of the background that I had. And I said, I'll do it because I could do it at any hour of the day. And he was going to pay me like $20 an hour. And I was like, done. I can work at 8 p.m., 3 a.m., 7 a.m. It didn't matter. So I started doing that. And because I had all that background doing lead gen campaigns, I was looking at what his podcast was doing for his business and I was blown away. I was like, well, I have never seen anything work this effectively this quickly because it was both a channel and content for his brand. And he was having conversations with people that he wanted to learn from and or do business with. So that's kind of how that happened. It's kind of an interesting sort of marriage across all of the experience that I had had up until then because I was a theater student. I understood the power of performance, got into marketing. So I understood story. I was a copywriter. Like all of these things were kind of building throughout my career. I had worked with the LPGA and filmed their talent. And like, so all of these things were building blocks to then be in this moment of time where he asked me to help. I saw it working. And then I was like, this is something that more brands should be doing. And that's kind of how the ball got started.
Also, you've just helped unearth, like, you and I have met and talked a handful of times.
Yeah.
And admittedly, I was like, you were like one of the most engaging people. Like, you are invested in conversation. And I'm like, she's really good at this. And then you've just like connected all the dots, like theater, copy, content, storytelling. Okay. Yeah. It's the years of like the journey that you're like, how the hell did you get so good at this? Yeah.
And I think honestly, like leaning into that, I think that's part of the challenge that we run in today is that we have so many people who are overexposed and underdeveloped, and we don't give like credence to the scars that people earn. And it's like, well, how did you get there? Let me hack my way to it. And it's like, sometimes it's just living. And it's like continuing to pull the thread of what interests you and you start to perfect the thing that you're naturally good at. And I think we need to give more, that's my soapbox moment, but I'm like, we need to give people more time to develop before we write them off.
Yeah. It's interesting you bring that up because the other side of that too is like people tend to want to sound like they're smarter or they want to project versus being themselves.
Yes.
And working at a mid-sized agency that was acquired by a global agency out of London, and everyone there was so crazy brilliant and smart and had the most wonderful accents, right? I was shook for a while, and I had a CEO pulled me aside. We were running through a pitch, and I used to get so nervous just being with coworkers in a Google Meet. And he pulled me aside and said, "Hey, like what do you like? Stop trying to talk like a marketer and act like a marketer and walk like a marketer. You're not here. They're here to talk about that. You just do you. Your superpower is relationships. Just talk to people." And like that one conversation was like, I'm just going to do me. And it was like from that moment on, it just felt like complete 180 because I was like so scared in this shell that wasn't really me. Once you step out of that, people are going to come and go in your life regardless. You can't trick people. Like you might be able to fool someone short term, but then long term, they're going to be like, you just talked a really good game. never mind.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think, it's interesting going back to the early days of Share Your Genius and sort of like the journey as a founder and all that kind of stuff. It's like what I didn't realize I was doing all along was seeking permission. I was waiting for other people to tell me that I was allowed to do the things I wanted to do. And even now, I still do that in some capacities. Maybe what I'm asking for is different, but I think that's something we all do is like we're looking for validation and seeking permission to just be who we know to be. And it's a powerful feeling when you start to say, I'm not asking permission anymore. I'm just going to be who I am. But then sitting in a leader's seat, it's like that CEO pulling you aside, like he unlocked you. And so it's like us as leaders looking at our people and going, I need to make sure that they see themselves in the way that I see them so that they don't have to look for permission or validation from me and they can just be who they're supposed to be.
No, wonderful. I realized too, you mentioned Share Your Genius. We
Yeah.
blasted right through that. For the uninitiated, what's Share Your Genius? Tell me about it.
Yeah, so Share Your Genius is we're in an evolution, but we're a media company. We primarily work with B2B brands and we handle all of their media production, but we're anchoring all of our strategy on a people first approach. And so for us, that looks like podcast production, thought leadership, and then event capture.
Event capture?
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean by event capture?
What I don't mean is that we're the team that you hire to like record your sessions and all of that. What I do mean is that we're the team behind the scenes that helps you grab that behind the scenes footage, that content that you wish that you had of your customers, your prospects, the people just being people in a room. That's our job.
Near and dear to my heart, my friend. Near and dear to my heart. Anytime we did our photo shoot, and I'm always like, which of you are recording ancillary video of us just being stupid shits? Like that's the gold, right? That's wonderful. A lot of work with podcasts. You started in podcast production, $20 an hour, working whenever you wanted, 3 a.m. How many podcasts, different podcasts have you promoted? Is it hundreds? Thousands?
Thousands. It's thousands. Yeah. I mean, we produce on a monthly basis, we're churning out anywhere between 1,500 and 2,000 episodes a month.
Just hearing that.
I mean, it's a machine, but to me, I don't think there's any better bet that a company can make than running a successful podcast and doing it with a North Star and a strategy that connects it all together. But it is one of the best things that you can do for your brand, for discoverability, for building relationships, for creating content that is human focused, not synthetic. There is nothing better.
You painted a great picture just now of like what the mission and vision and a great podcast should do. Let's talk about the other side of that though. Like what is something that like you see podcasts routinely get wrong, or people who want to start a podcast and think it's going to be something that it's not? For someone out there, like what do hosts think they're good at that they suck at, right? Like what is a thing where you're like, everyone does this, stop doing this?
Well,
and I'll be taking notes as well while you're.
Yeah, well, I'll caveat that I'm going to throw this through the lens of the brands side, because creators, hobbyists, people who are looking to actually build and monetize their podcast, those are two different camps. But when you think about it from the brand perspective, a lot of times people sleep on the guest experience as part of why the show even exists and what it's doing for your company and your brand. So a lot of times it looks like figuring out guests last minute, not prepping them, not giving them a beautiful experience, not truly being like, I don't mean host like MC, I mean host like as if you're inviting them into your home and like helping them feel like comfortable and connected and all of those kinds of things. That's a big ingredient. And then even after the event took place, so like the conversation, what are you doing with that guest to help them feel valued and heard and that their time was spent well? Like that guest experience is so untapped from a potential standpoint. The other thing that I would say a lot of people don't leverage, and they should, is maximizing their mic time. So you have a guest on your show, and if you've taken the time to understand why you want that guest on your show, who they are to your brand, all of that, there might be pieces of our conversation that aren't part of the show because it doesn't fit the premise, but that content should be used, and you should be using it on purpose. And so I always encourage our strategic leads who work with our clients to coach their clients on other nuggets they should be mining for. Their marketing team will be very, very happy that they have this extra content that is like human based, and B, it's just you're maximizing your leader's time when they're on the mic and on camera, which is so valuable to get their attention and their focus. And the last thing I'll say is, like, going back to the guest experience, a lot of times people are thinking about their podcast opportunities as like churn and burn. So like, book them on my calendar, get it in, blah, blah, blah. But then they don't take the time to actually like study. And I don't mean you need hours of preparation. I don't mean that, but like to just get in the right headspace, to stop looking at Slack, like to make sure your phone is not in your eye, because you can tell when somebody is on there and they're also trying to check an email. And it's like, that is
Does people do
disrespectful to
that?
everybody's. Oh yeah. Yeah. And it is like, you just can't do that kind of stuff. And so those are the things that have been consistent. And by the way, these are the same things I've been saying since Share Your Genius was born, which was almost a decade ago. So AI hasn't changed these bad habits. They still exist.
That is enlightening, because I had someone reach out, old counterpart, who's at a new company, and we ended up talking about we might work together in one way, shape, or form. He reached out. He listened to an episode, or he watched an episode a few weeks ago, and he asked me what my video setup was, because I'm always looking at the camera, and I was like, it's an iMac, and I'm just looking at the camera. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, like you're in a much smaller box right below the camera. So
Yeah.
like, and now that you mention it, now that I think about it, like, so many people, like, it's so easy to be distracted. It's like, you give someone your attention for 45 minutes. Shouldn't be that hard, but it gets harder every day, because all of the content we consume is 45 seconds and no one has the patience. And I like what you said about researching. I think it's a headspace of like knowing we're recording today. I've been thinking about this episode as of like last week, and in spare moments, poking around, looking at the questions again, thinking about what direction, what I should ask. I don't like that question, I'm not going to ask that one. But then also, I have a weird thing where everyone knows this. If I have a pitch or anything, I clear 30 minutes before. I cannot run from one to another, because I need to like sit with myself and size all my windows and like think through and like almost like prepare for the pitch or the podcast. And I think a lot of people are just bang, 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 bang. The best way to get on podcasts is to start a podcast, because there's constantly people asking me to be on podcasts. And I've been on some great ones. And also, near and dear to my heart, I will take my shoe off and bang it on this desk. Like the guest experience, the analogy I've always used, and I use it with clients and with pitches, is like, you walk into a new restaurant and you don't know if it's sit down, host, stand, counter service. Is it counter service? You need a sign that says order here, pick up your order here. Like, you have to like guide the guest on how the experience works here, which means sending advance information, checking back in with them, getting on the calendar, letting them know there's going to be a calendar invite. There'll be a link in it, because those are the things that people like, I don't know what to do with my hands, because I've gotten invited on podcasts where I literally got zero advance warning. And then they're like, what do you think about the AI's impact on marketing industry in the short and long term? And I'm like, we're a heavy hitter right out of the gates. I don't know, dude, it's 9 a.m. Like, I'm
It's
halfway through
inconsiderate,
dinner.
honestly. And I don't think it's a negative. Like, I don't think people are doing this intentionally, but I think that's my point, is that if you're going to have a podcast, and how you use it and how you measure success is something we can talk about. But if you're going to ask somebody to spend their time with you, then make sure that you honor the time they spend with you. And to your point earlier of like 45 minutes versus 45 seconds, well, that's just distribution. That's a completely different way of thinking about the content and how you're using it and how people find content. But I'm talking literally about the time that you spend with that person and making sure that you've created the space for yourself. And if you don't have the time to do it, maybe you shouldn't, or maybe somebody else should do it. And now you have a gift of being a conversationalist. Like, you're good on your feet. Like, you can do this thing and make people feel comfortable. Some people don't have that gift. And so that's the other thing that brands have to consider, is like, who should be the host? Maybe it's not the CEO. Maybe it's not the CMO. Like, who should it actually be? And that determination might define how you shape the format of your show. It might define how you define success. Like, there's some of these just like ingredients that people don't think through fully when they sign up to launch a show or run a podcast. And then when it doesn't take off in the way that they thought that it would, you can kind of look back and go, well, you made some decisions at the beginning that set you up to fail, and or the way you defined it from the beginning based on the ingredients you have set you up to evaluate this as a failure. So that's kind of the framing that might be helpful.
Do you think that gets back to what we talked about in the intentionality of like walking in with zero expectations versus people thinking outcome based immediately? Like, this is how many leads we want to drive with this podcast. I laugh when I say it, because it's not about that, right? Like, that rigid, and maybe again, why the CEO, not just CMO, C-suite, because they don't have the time, but also because they are taught from day one to think like, what are we going to get out of this? And in a lot of ways, it's the wrong frame of mind.
And it could be okay. So like, let's just run a scenario. And I'll run it from my perspective because I'm a small business owner. And if it's not driving impact, I'm probably not going to do it. Like, unless I just like don't believe in it. You know what I mean? Or I just believe in it and want to do it anyway. But when it comes to marketing, and I hired my first VP of marketing this year, which was like a big deal for me. And so when I look at how we're spending our time, I am going to go, how many SQLs did we generate? What is this doing for the company? So thinking about it from the lens of the podcast, if we are running a podcast and our theory of victory for the podcast is that we want to build relationships with people that we wouldn't have access to otherwise, my question isn't how many leads do we generate, but it is going to be, what's the quality of guest? What content did we create that's helping us like generate interest from an inbound perspective? Is that person a competitor? Why are they on the show? Or is that person somebody who could buy from us? Or is that somebody who could connect us to people who could buy from us? That's a valuable worth of your hour of time. So to your point, it's not like one-to-one, but it should be helping you tell a story of how time is being spent. And most of the time when you're talking to like a CEO or a CMO or whatever, you're asking the question of like, shouldn't you be talking to your clients anyway? Shouldn't you be talking to your team anyway? Shouldn't you be talking to people who could buy from you anyway? Well, yes, yes, and yes. Then why are you not creating a system in which you're actually capturing that and leveraging it for content?
Yeah.
That's what a podcast ultimately can be, if nothing else.
Back in the day, it was a blog, right? Like when I first got in this
Yeah.
business, PPC
Same.
Hero was this huge blog, and everyone came to us because
Yeah.
we were experts. And those could have been carved in stone tablets at this point. That was so long ago. It's like, what leading indicator? You talked about KPIs, you talked about SQLs. When someone's starting, like, what should you be tracking? What are vanity metrics? What are the anecdotal like references that you should pick up on? What do you measure?
So I anchor everything in really two types of framing: metrics of success versus metrics of performance. Metrics of performance are going to be things like download, consumption, those types of things that you can pull from your podcast hosting platform. And they help you understand like ways to move the needle. So for example, if my downloads, and I'll go to success here in a second, but from a performance perspective, if my downloads are really high, like I'm consistently growing my downloads month over month when I drop episodes, but my consumption is low, like less than 50%, maybe even less than 30%, then I might be marketing to the wrong person, or my content sucks. So it's like you look at that to help you understand like what you need to do to kind of flip the script. Downloads are not a metric of success. They're data that help you understand whether or not what you're doing is resonating, what you're doing is reaching the right audience, like those types of things. And then what you're really wanting to look at from a brand standpoint is like, how much time are people spending with my brand? Because that's a good indicator that they know you, they like you, they're going to probably buy from you one day. Like those are the things that I'm looking at. And now let's flip the script and let's say your downloads are plateauing and your consumption is really high. That tells me we have a marketing opportunity. We should probably put some paid media behind this. We should probably grow this a little bit because the people that show up are sticking around and they're loving it. So that's kind of how I think about things from a performance standpoint. And that's how a partner with your show, like whether that's internally or you outsource that, that's how they should be helping you think through the opportunity for your podcast. When it comes to success, though, success comes from the brand. It comes from the bet that you're willing to make. And success could look like, I want to grow our website traffic. Okay, well then if that's a metric of success, then the podcast needs to support that growth, meaning we need to understand what your SEO strategy is. We need to understand how you're showing up in AI. We need to understand what content best performs. We need to understand if your podcast content can fit within your existing content so that we're like leveraging it that way. So that's kind of how you have to think about a podcast. Now, if somebody comes in and says, I'm trying to run this as an ABM play, you say, okay, well then we're going to look at whether or not our outreach is creating the output we want to see. So because of the show, were we able to bridge the gap for the people that we wanted to target anyway and build a relationship? And then from the conversation on the podcast, were we able to convert any of those into a second conversation that had to do with the business, not the podcast? So that's kind of a way to think about it.
What about downloads versus subscribers?
Depends on your goal. But I would say if you're looking at growing your YouTube channel, you're going to want more subscribers than downloads. And again, it all comes back down to that. But subscribers are a conversion event. And I would be looking at that as are we growing? Yes, and to the right. Is our content resonating? That consumption numbers going up, time spent with brand, and are they taking the intended action? If that intended action is subscribe, then I better see those numbers going up and to the right.
One thing I didn't really think too much about that has consistently come through discovery calls that I sit in on that I'm a part of is how many people vibe check us via the podcast. Like
Yes.
it's a fantastic way. Like they may watch 5 seconds, 5 minutes. They may watch every single episode, but like 4 out of the last 5 discovery calls, someone's mentioned it's either a joke, like I feel like I'm on the podcast right now because I'm always
Mhm.
sitting right here in my office, or they say, "Hey, like listen to the podcast or I watch the podcast." They make a comment about it, and you start to realize, oh wait, like they're vetting us. It's a way for them to vet, are they really a fit before they reach out, which actually leaps you forward sometimes, hopefully 5, 10, 15 steps in the process, and makes the conversation, because when you jump into these calls and everything, the lights come up for a discovery call or a client call, no one, you're like, is this person going to be cool? Are they going to be a dick? Is it going to be awkward? Do they know how to have a conversation? And I think people run it through the filter and like, this should be fun, because it goes back to like the
100%.
thing, I just want to have fun, right? If we
Yes.
can grow this business and it's awesome, great. But if I can grow it and also have fun and we work with great
Home
people,
run.
home run,
Yeah.
100% of the time. To me, that's like the first and foremost thing. The second thing, I keep talking about blogs and I don't know why, but like there's the whole, you're going to scream into the wind and no one's going to be listening. And I would keep the self-deprecating thing. Like I've told somebody, like, hey, don't worry, no one's watching or listening anyway, right? Like there's this element of like, we're just like, it's just you and I. No one else is
Mhm.
no one's gonna see this, which is
Mhm.
kind of a lie because people do watch it and people do listen, but you have to, like, steep yourself in the reality of, if this were 2012 when you started a blog, you're gonna post every single, it's like it's regimented, it's scheduled, and you're not gonna get anything from it until you do,
It's
potentially.
compounding. Honestly, this is the line I always say is I'm like, "What's the eighth wonder of the world?" And people are like, "I don't know." It's compounding interest. In marketing, it's compounding trust. And so your job as a marketer is to create opportunities to compound trust so that when people go to buy, they've already decided that it's gonna be you. And the way that we know buyers vet, and this has been happening over the last decade, so this isn't like brand new information, but it's like we go check each other out. We go see like what are they about? What's their personality? What are their values? Do I know? Do I like them? It comes back down to like human connection. And that's why I always say there's nothing better than a podcast because it's never just a podcast. So even if no one ever listens to this, like from a downloads perspective, but somebody hears your story, Tom, on like Founder and they resonate with that, now they want to hire your agency, that's a win for you. And you may never know, but it wouldn't have happened if they hadn't. And the other piece of it is like you creating content keeps you relevant. Because to your point earlier, when you're not in the client work every day, your muscles do atrophy. But when you have conversations with people, you learn. You just do. And so it's like all comes back down to this like there is like the stats that help you understand performance and success. There are the sayings, so what people say to you about the show that kind of keep you the motivation to keep going, and all of them are relevant.
You remind me of yet another old school outside sales saying that I was taught years ago. It's easy work to do, but it's hard work to make yourself do. Like there's
Yeah.
an element of like the other one was like the hardest door to open is the one to your car. Like you
Yeah.
just gotta like go knock on
Just
the
go.
door. Just
Yeah,
go.
just
Like
show up.
just
Yeah.
show up. It really is like 90% is just showing up. And
Yes.
and understanding that it's almost like you're creating a physical record of your existence, right? For that someone can like open the tomes if they're looking at agencies and be like, let's see, yeah, let's talk
Yeah.
to them. And it could be an
Honestly.
episode from 6 months ago, right? Because I do the same thing when I listen to podcasts or watch a podcast. Is I scroll through and I look for a guest, and it could be a year ago because some podcasts I'm like, ooh, they talked to this
That's
person,
one.
that looks interesting. Yeah, let's go for it.
Which is why you can't look at downloads as your metric of success because I might be a dabbler because I'm vetting to buy from you. It doesn't mean I'm going to
Mhm.
listen to your show all the time. I have enough content to consume. We all do, right? So it's like if you're measuring it on that, you're not measuring it in a way that actually moves the needle for your company, which is also why I caveated to say this is not for creators looking to monetize and be influencers and all of that. This is what I'm talking about, the brand experience and how you get people to buy from you. And it comes down to what am I using to build trust? And a podcast is by far the best way to do it.
Trust exercise. This is just a one big trust fall.
Mm-hmm.
2 more questions for you, and I promise I'll cut you loose.
Great.
Um, you've been doing this a while.
Mm-hmm.
even though you're only 22.
Yep. Yep. Totally.
What's a belief you held earlier in your career that you think might be bullshit now?
That you have to prove yourself. Like, proving yourself is so performative. It's for other people. It's like, it goes back to our conversation at the beginning where it's like ego. I mean, it sounds so cliche, but like, you're already enough. You're already good enough. How you channel your energy, how you do that is up to you. That's part of the game of life, but you don't have to prove shit to anybody.
You don't have to prove shit to anybody. I love that.
Mhm.
Last question. I ask everyone this question. It's one of my favorites. Might be my favorite. It's Mixtape Digital. I worked at a music land, Sam Goody, back in the day in the mall. So, like, I mean, there's a boombox right here. I am all about music. And so I love to ask if there was a playlist for your career that only had 2 or 3 songs on it, what are those 2 or 3 songs and why?
Oh, this is hard. A Hamilton mixtape. One Shot would be a song on there. The song is basically like, don't miss your opportunities, like that. So that would be one. And I would say my career has shown up that way because I've just gone after things without knowing the outcome and felt good about that. That would be one. And
That's
then
good.
I would say another one. Man, this is hard. Honestly, the other 2 songs that come to mind, there's 3, okay? And this will just give you my mindset. One is like, I used to listen to this every single time I was getting ready to take a test, like in law school, is Eminem,
Uh-huh.
Phenomenal, that song.
Uh-huh.
So it was like my hype song. And then the other one is Imagine Dragons' Thunder. That would be one. And then the last one is I think it's Panic at the Disco, who I don't totally love, but I loved the song of, man, what is that song? Where it's like, gonna be 1 in a million. Whatever the hook is on that song. Those would be my songs. Because you
Love those
gotta like,
songs.
you
No,
gotta
that's
keep it going. The motivation, like you need it.
I asked that question because it gives you a glimpse into that path, right? The scars and like people like when like you mentioned a musical, Panic at the Disco, Imagine Dragons. Everyone tends to do that thing where they're like
Yeah.
you realize just how all over the board everyone is at different periods in their life.
Yeah.
And there's always like 2 to 4 answers that you can almost see the trajectory of like how their mentality and musical taste has like changed over the years. But it's still
Yeah.
important to them. I love it.
That's a cool question. Yeah. Love it.
Rachel, thank you so much for making time. I feel like we could have talked for 3 hours, but I don't have 3 hours in me and I'm going to be exhausted after because that's the other thing people don't realize is how exhausting it is when you're hosting.
Yes.
You've got to thread it together. Sometimes the only time available is like 4 p.m. and I am fucking gassed. Thank you for being on the show. It means a lot to me.
Thanks
I
for
really
having
appreciate
me.
it.
This was fun.
Awesome.
Appreciate
Thanks.
you.